Today is Friday, November 22nd, and today's agricultural fact of the day pertains to recalls that have recently happened in the grocery store. You may have heard about them in the news. Today's agricultural fact: E. coli has been detected in organic carrots originating from Grimway Farms. So far, there have been 39 illnesses, 15 hospitalizations, and 1 unaliving associated with the outbreak. Cases have been reported in 18 states. E. coli is found in the intestines of humans and animals and typically causes contamination in vegetables via feces. This was actually the fact that we did in my 8th grade class yesterday, and I made a very big takeaway point here, which is wash your vegetables and fruits before you consume them. Now, that is not a complete fail-safe way to prevent this from occurring, but it may help. But then one of the kids goes, "What do we wash them with? Soap, Dawn dish soap?" And I was like, well, I don't think that's what you're supposed to wash them with. So if you know what the health department advises to prevent instances like these, feel free to comment, because I don't have time to look it up. But the kid did make a very good point. Mostly this would be tied, I'm guessing, to fertilizer. One other point that I made to the students, because there was a big recall on romaine lettuce a few years ago with a similar situation. And I believe it was tied to the workers that were working in the field, because as I said to them, when you have employees spending hours upon hours and days upon days out in these fields harvesting these crops, where do they go to the bathroom? Kind of the gross reality of it, right? I mean, now another point that I made to them yesterday, because with carrots, a lot of the harvesting is mechanized. So you have machines doing it, unlike perhaps lettuce, which may be a little bit less, but obviously there are carrot picking machines that go through and harvest these carrots. So I'm guessing that that's probably not what brought on this. But then we talked about organic and fertilizer and what would be considered organic fertilizer, because they don't use the traditional types of chemical fertilizers that is most commonly used on conventional farms. So poop is spread on the fields. Now, another fact, which I might make it a fact of the day for next week, even though we won't be in school, we have parent-teacher conferences on Monday and Tuesday. I actually have to take Tuesday off because my children have parent-teacher conferences on Tuesday morning in the district that we live in, so it's not really feasible for me to jog back and forth. But there was also today, my husband saw on the news that there is a recall in ground beef, and there is E. coli contamination with that. Obviously, with beef, you're not fertilizing. How does the contamination happen? Well, usually it's contamination from the hide of those animals. Obviously, with ground beef on those larger scale types of processing facilities, they make batches of ground beef. So they will have scraps from several different cows that they put into a bin, and then they use that to formulate with they do the scientific calculation to figure out how much fat percentage and how much of each. We go over it in the meats evaluation contest preparation. That probably was from contamination from the hides of animals, if I'm thinking correctly. To which many of my kids said, well, you just need to buy local, but unfortunately for some people, that's just not really an option. But it is something to be aware of, making sure that you're properly cooking your food. So ask and you shall receive. I believe it was towards the end of last week or maybe over the weekend. I posted that video of myself breeding my 13-and-a-half-year-old cow on October 20th. And I stated in that video that if anybody was looking to get me a gift, that I could really use a tripod, because mine broke when I was wrestling a ram lamb about 6 weeks ago. And before I knew it, I ended up with not just 1, but 2. Thank you to Alicia with One Less Thing, and also Terry, one of my longtime followers. So now I actually have a tripod at home, and I have a tripod for school. So I really do appreciate that. And it will definitely make the recording much easier, especially here, because I just kind of do it undercover and nobody really knows that I do it. And I typically will stack things on top of each other to get it to just the right height. So now I don't have to worry about that. So thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And I also received this wonderful handwritten note from the owners of One Less Thing. Unfortunately, the mic may not work, but I've contacted the company because I have the iPhone 15, so the lightning thing, like the hookup is a little bit different. So I tried a converter, it didn't work, but I did reach out to the company to see if I would be able to exchange that. I just wish that they would make this technology all uniform, and instead of switching up connections, they would just take one and run with it and leave it at that.